Israeli doctor reinfected with coronavirus 3 months after recovering.
Here's a summary of the article.
A doctor at Sheba Medical Center in Tel Hashoma tested positive again for the novel coronavirus 3 months after initially recovering from the disease. The doctor tested positive again because she has remnants of her first virus still floating around in her body, a hospital spokesperson told the Jerusalem Post on Sunday. The doctor suffered from fever, cough and muscle pain when she tested positive for the virus in April, but she recovered and tested negative in May and June. In May, a 45-year-old woman from Jisre Zaka tested positive for coronavirus after being readmitted to Hillel Yaf Medical Center in Hadera, suffering from fever and chest pains. This came a month after she was discharged after recovering from the virus and testing negative twice. Several studies are attempting to figure out how long protection provided by antibodies will last. Dr. Maria van Kerkhove, the World Health Organization's COVID-19 technical lead, said last week, adding that some initial studies have found they may wane after a couple of months. Preliminary studies in China, Germany, the UK and elsewhere have found patients infected with the novel coronavirus make protective antibodies as part of their immune system's defenses, but these appear to last only a few months.
This post received a score of 64,000, with an upvote ratio of 91%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Why is there never details with reinfections? I want to know, are reinfections lighter, worse, equal? Cold viruses, which are much closer to COVID-19 than influenza, reinfect constantly, but usually the body gets routine about licking it quick until a new strain hits it. Is that the case with COVID-19? Or it at full force each time? I cannot find one goddamn detail on this.
The best place to get these data would be a heavily infected area like NYC where a significant fraction of the population has been infected. If the likelihood of getting infected is low 1%, then the likelihood of getting infected twice would be significantly lower 0.01%, assuming the person did not take personal measures to avoid exposure, which is extremely relevant, and assuming no resistance. So getting enough data to measure these effects accurately takes time. It will take even longer or be impossible if not enough people have been infected, as was the case for SARS-1.
NYC's infection rate is somewhere over 25% by best estimate IIRC. That would mean there's a sample of 2 million people that could potentially be infected again in NYC. So you'd think for every 4 new COVID infections in NYC, at least one of them would be reinfections. I'd assume essential workers are going to be more likely to be reinfected than average. But that doesn't seem to be getting reported. IDK what to make of it.
There is also the problem of confirming it. Some reinfections could be asymptomatic both times, some could be the second time but not the first. Even if you did find a reinfection, unless they had severe symptoms the first time, it would be hard to rule out that the initial test was a false positive. You would need a lot of completely indisputable cases to start drawing clear conclusions.
Or a lot of data. Each of the scenarios you mentioned are going to have trends and trend breaks that can be analyzed. The more sophisticated models should be able to account for the discrepancies you mentioned once they have sufficient data, which they should have by now. I think it's more than likely that the models used by the CDC account for everything you mentioned and then some. But they're not allowed to address the public thanks to Agent Orange. Edit. Clarification and spelling.
The early outbreaks in areas where one could analyze for reinfection occurred back when there were severe test shortages. Even people who needed them weren't getting them. No one was getting secondary tests to check for false positives. Basically, the places where you might see enough data on reinfections to draw conclusions are also the places that have the worst data because they were hit when every test was at a premium. The only way to be individually certain of reinfection is a past positive test, plus clear symptoms that were definitely COVID, plus multiple positive tests right now to rule out false positives.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.